Hi everybody, this is the Baseball Hut, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the people's champion, your host, the Hut. Welcome back to the Baseball Hut 3, and hopefully you like this video. It's that subscribe button. You know, it's interesting is when you hear podcasters and radio broadcasters fighting out. There's a lot of stuff going on. You don't know, I mean, got Megan Kelly fighting Mark Levin fighting this one, Mark Levin fighting that one. And now we got two guys on the other side, two separate sides, fighting over women, as it were. Clay Travis and Pablo Torre. I came across this because I follow Clay Travis, who he has a radio program with Buck Sexton. I can't listen to it. And it's not because the content isn't good. I can't figure out who the hell's talking. Because both guys sound very similar. I don't know whose idea was to team them up. But to bring in two guys that sound very similar on the radio, it's difficult to discern who the hell is talking. Never had a problem with Rush. I mean, Rush had that time slot, because they took over Rush's show. But Jesus, can we get guys that talk different, sound different? Well, anyway, he started arguing about Riley Gaines, who was a swimmer, who competed against a man years ago and got her ass kicked by a man in the women's arena, women's category. And she's probably had a good career, nice career for herself, which is fine. There's some awful announcing. Awful announcing is a left-leaning website. Talked about that a lot. They have good information. The main thing is getting these quotes that they use. That's really the main thing that I get from here. But here we go. Pablo Torre, Clay Travis spar over Riley Gaines. This is embarrassing, Pablo, okay? On the latest episode of the Pablo Torre Finds Out podcast, Pablo Torre interviewed Mother Jones reporter Madison Pauly about a story she had written on former University of Kentucky swimmer turned conservative media star Riley Gaines. Riley Gaines rose prominence several years ago after competing against transgender swimmer William Thomas, a.k.a. Leah Thomas, in the NCAA Women's Swimming Championships. Gaines and Thomas tied for fifth in the 200-meter freestyle event. They've faced off a few times. This is not the one time. This is a few times. And this is a big issue. An issue that President Trump got reelected on. Men competing in women's sports. And I would mention a lot of the sportscasters, the broadcasters that talk about sports, they don't talk about it. They don't talk about the woman that got her ass kicked in the Olympics last year by that man, I guess from Algeria. They don't talk about that. Thomas's participation in the event became a national news story, particularly in conservative corners of the media, and Gaines made frequent media appearances to share his perspective that Tom should not have been allowed to participate in the event. Now, there were more than just one event. This guy won a lot of events. He just destroyed all these women. He was a mediocre swimmer amongst men, and he became the top swimmer in the women's category, believe it or not. As Torre documents in his podcast, Gaines' appearances became more extreme with time. First, the Kentucky swimmer simply made the case that Thomas, another transgender athlete, should not be allowed to compete in women's sports. Later, Gaines suggests that Thomas's mere presence in the locker room should equate to voyeurism or a form of sexual assault, despite sourcing that suggests Thomas remained covered on the locker room at the NCAA championships in question. No woman wants to see a man naked with a robe or no robe on, walking around, skulking around the locker room when they're changing. They don't want that. Joy Reid said that on a podcast. That goofball skinhead. At the end of his podcast, Torre revealed that former University of Kentucky swimming coach Lars Jorgensen, who coached Gaines, has been credibly accused of sexual assault against her teammates. In doing so, Torre suggests that Gaines punched up, retelling of the Thomas story, which sources inside the locker room have refuted. What's funny is he is punching up because he's much bigger than her. much taller, undermines credible accusations of sexual assault, like those made by her former teammates against her former coach. Torre also connects Gaines' newer version of events to her recent financial successes. Since the swim meet in question, Gaines has become a well-known conservative influencer. She's a contributor to the right-wing sports and culture website Outkick, which is owned by Fox Corporation. And she also does various paid speaking engagements, including for Turning Point USA, the organization founded by the slain right-wing activist Charlie Kirk. Torre's conclusion that Gaines has essentially turned to outlandish false rhetoric for her own financial gain did not sit well with Outkick founder Clay Travis, who called the episode of Torre's podcast embarrassing. Now, I would mention Clay Travis is her boss. She works for Outkick. So he knows her. So he's just sticking up for his employee. A tweet from Clay Travis, he said this is embarrassing, Pablo. Your big investigation uncovered that Riley Gaines is paid to share her story and that being forced to compete against the man in the NCAA swimming championship changed her perspective on trans issues. Travis wrote on X. Torre responded saying Travis failed to address his point that Gaines' rhetoric could undermine the serious accusations of her teammates. First of all, one has nothing to do with the other. Quote, you forget something. RE, Predators and Women's Sports Story wrote, here's what Riley's former UK teammate and friend told us about their head coach, Lars Jorgensen. It's hard for me to care about Riley Gaines' time for fifth when my swim coach is accused of raping my teammates. Now, did she see it? Everyone's innocent until proven guilty. Did he go to jail? Travis then responds showing that Gaines had condemned Jorgensen's behavior last year when the accusations became public. Then prompted Torre to answer an easy question. Should men be allowed to compete in women's sports? Interesting. And I don't think he said anything. Later, Torre responded with more context of his own. Simon Biles got sexually assaulted by Larry Nassar. Now, Riley Gaines now seems to get paid to accuse Leah Thomas of doing something similar. Also never speaking aloud about her male coach best friend getting banned for life after multiple rape allegations at UK. One has nothing to do with the other. One's a very serious situation. The other one's a serious situation. There's always that possibility of assault, especially when people are naked. It's certainly no surprise to see Travis defend one of his own employees so vigorously, and it's no secret that Torre and Travis occupy opposite ends of the political spectrum. Torre is a regular contributor on the recently rebranded failed MS Now, formerly MSNBC. That tells you a lot. If history repeats itself, this could end in Torre inviting Travis onto his podcast. That's how the former Around the Horn panelist has addressed prior beefs with Bill Simmons and Mark Cuban. But I wouldn't be surprised if Torre found Travis' stance irreconcilable, excuse me, and does see little value in bringing him on the show. In other words, Awful Announcing does not want him on to debate Torre for a very specific reason, because he's not one of them. Bill Simmons is one of them. Mark Cuban is their boss and is one of them. When I mean boss, a billionaire. I mean, what are they arguing about with Torre? All on the same side. Clay Travis is not. He's a mainstream conservative guy. He's not going to have Torre on. I mean, he's not going to have Travis on. He's just not going to. But this thing about men and women's sports was a big issue in the election last year, a huge issue, and that was one of the things that President Trump changed. As soon as he walked in, that men weren't going to compete with women. It's unfair. Give you an example: the WNBA. If you were to get a high school team to go up against a bunch of 25, 30-year-old women in the WNBA, they'd destroy them. They would beat them with no problem. The average high school team, from any team, any school, anywhere, they would beat them easily. Physically, men have the capability to do more than women. It's just how it is. It's not me saying it. It's just a fact. you know. And then the idea that a woman has to compete psychologically against a man physically, that doesn't help either. But you let me know what you think about this video. What do you think about this beef? Are they going to talk it out? I highly doubt it. This is about as far as it's going to go. But fighting over a beautiful woman is not a bad thing. Trust me. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. And of course, hit the subscribe button.